Drew, let me start with a basic idea that Home Depot trades at a premium to Lowe's. Call it a PE compare of 19 versus 15. Why are they second best to Home Depot?
Yeah, good question. And interestingly enough, the premium of Home Depot over Lowe's is at the highest level it's been in some time. A lot of that has to do with the greater productivity in the Home Depot stores. Lowe's has kind of lagged in that regard. In addition, Home Depot's growth has traditionally outpaced Lowe's, and a lot of that has to do with their exposure to the professional customer, which typically higher spending, and they drive greater store productivity. So that has a lot to do with it.
Either way, there was a cohesive message from both of these companies that big ticket items are on the decline in terms of purchases. We heard this from Lowe's today, that they're seeing lower than expected do-it-yourself sales. Is this a macro call or a micro call? Is this a representation of a housing market that's in stasis, or is this a broader pullback in spending that you see in other facets as well?
So I think there's a couple things going on. First and foremost, I do think that the consumer is under greater pressure than we've seen over the last several quarters. And as you mentioned, it's the pullback in discretionary items. So, think of things like floor and cabinetry, appliances. And, another big piece of this is think about how much Lowe's grew sales during the pandemic. They grew sales about 30% during a 3-year period, so about 16% annualized. And that compares about 5%, in any given year. So we think there's a lot of pull forward demand during the pandemic, and we're starting to see some of that give back. And then, the last thing you have to mention is what's happening in the housing market. We have sales of existing homes that are below the 4 million annualized rate. It's the lowest in over a decade. So while that traditional relationship between home improvement spending and sales isn't as strong as it used to be, you'd be naive to think that with sales as low as they are, that's not impacting the story.